A woman will respect you if she sees you are operating in purpose and in your relationship with God.
Today is the tomorrow that you worry about yesterday.
Notice the trick of the enemy. And instead of you going into prayer, getting in that closet, getting with God,
You go to the argument, you get in each other's faces.
just because you're away and your people can't see you, don't mean they don't feel it when you get back. Welcome to another episode of Transformational Truth Podcast, and I got the privilege to hang out and bring and invite some guys I have the wonderful privilege of serving in the kingdom with. These guys are brilliant, committed men of God, and we're all striving to become better each and every day. And so tonight, today, whenever you hear this, wherever you hear this, we pray that every male in your life, whether it's a cousin, whether it's an uncle, whether it's a father, grandfather, or brother, we pray that you would share it with them and send it to them, because tonight we're going to hear some things through authenticity, through transparency, through vulnerability. You may see brothers cry, you may see us get emotional, but it's all coming from a place of awe, understanding that as much as we've done, God still has his hand on us. And so these are the brothers of R.E.A.L Church, and I wanted them to hang out with me tonight. I wanted you all to hear them and be impacted and poured into from this conversation tonight. And so I've got, I'll introduce really quickly. I got Marcus right here to my immediate left. There's Steve right there on the end, Brandon in the middle, Chris on the end. And then when you come around back to this side, this is the Android side, I got Greg right here, Matthias right here in the middle, and then my boy Ricky right here to my immediate right. So tonight is just going to be conversation, and we're going to talk about understanding identity and finding value in this world, in our lives, and ensuring that we walk into a space of authenticity but fulfilling purpose. And so fellas, tonight, y'all be free, be at home, be engaging, and let's get it. And I'll kick it off, man. I've been reading this book, and I think Brandon and Matthias have read it, The Way of the Superior Man. And did you order it?
I just got it yesterday.
And it's so many nuggets in that book, so many transformational nuggets in that book that really ignites a transformative way of thinking and looking at life and at the value of life, because it teaches that your greatest value cannot be seen, that your greatest value is in nothing that can be seen tangibly. It's not in your car, it's not in your house, it's not in your clothes, that your greatest value is in what protrudes from your internal self that can be felt by another human being, where you add value, not to their existential reality, but value to their life. And all of us have something intrinsically deposited in us that brings a value. And he has this quote, fellas. He said this, and you know, let me know if y'all just jump in the conversation. But he has this quote, and in the beginning of the book, he says, "May this book serve the liberation of your true gifts. May it serve the liberation of your true gifts, so that countless multitudes of humans may benefit even more from your living and your loving." So it's saying, may this book bring from the prison of captivity the authenticity of who you are, so that when you speak and when you engage with people and when you connect with people, you add a value to their lives that lives beyond even your existence. So money is not a gift. Possessions is not a gift. And it teaches you that the sum total of your true value is found not in what you accumulate, but in what you become. And here is what got me, Marcus. Here's what got me. You could spend your entire life working, accumulate great riches, great success, and still die without being who God created you to be. That's so crazy. You can get all of this stuff and still die out of purpose.
That's pretty deep. At the same thing, it's really not that hard or that confusing to me, to be honest with you, because he who lacks wisdom asks for it. And if you're living for God, that should be like one of the first things you should be asking for is wisdom. Just like you were talking about the other day, clarity.
Right.
I need to pray about anything that happens in my life.
Absolutely.
So I get clarity, so I move forward to the right place.
Absolutely.
So the beginning of all wisdom is the fear of God.
Yeah.
Pull that mic
It's
closer
the
to
fear
you.
of God. And I just don't feel. How about now?
Yep.
I see we missing that in this generation, couple generations at this point in time. Nobody walks in fear of God. It's not even being taught to our sons, the fear of God, or to our daughters. We see it all around us.
Right.
We see it completely happening. We're asking why is the darkness so bad out there? And it really becomes because men are not walking in the integrity of the fear of God and asking for that wisdom. So when you ask about what could be left behind, well, if you're walking for God and you live for God, it's everything inside you that comes out of the person who you are that's able to influence everybody. It's not a house, it's not a car, it's not, but I don't care where you raise your kids, on the bad side of town or the good side of town, they can still be productive for God as long as God is in the home. And then God starts
He
at
has
home
to be.
with the man.
He
Doesn't
has to
start with anywhere else. And I feel really bad for a lot of these single women out there, but I have to ask myself the question, was the fear of God in them when they were single out there? And with the man they were with, do they have the wisdom of God to not get that woman pregnant because they had a godly man at home telling them, hey,
That's
watching.
missing.
God is watching. So I can ramble on and on. I
No,
know
you're not rambling.
Okay.
No, and based on what you're saying, watch this. In the introduction of the book, it talks about how in this world that we're living in, women have really jumped in the leadership roles in a lot of situations. That men are no longer the sole breadwinner or the most, watch this, or the most purpose-driven member of the house. And because of that, men are having in this context to rediscover their worth in the world and in their relationships. And here is the question. When a man's value is no longer determined by what he does, by his finances, or his social status, how does he begin now to determine or find his current worth in today's culture and society? Anybody can answer that if you want to.
I think one of the first things he's got to do is find a pastor and a church home, because in this today's society, a lot of men, and I've had conversations with a lot of brothers, and one of the things, we don't talk to each other. We've been taught that we keep our business to ourselves, we keep our feelings to ourselves, we leave everything pent up inside, and we aren't opening up and talking when we're struggling, when we got a problem. And I'm talking to a lot of brothers, and I told them that, and I heard you talking about Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so shall a man do his friend. That has been something, and I had a conversation with Steve, and he and I had a conversation. That has been my catalyst under your tutelage to help me talking to more brothers and saying, look, you can talk. If you got a problem, if it's not me, there's somebody that you can find to talk to, because us holding it in, it's got to start somewhere. And it starts with finding that mentorship, that teacher, that leader, and then having the understanding that under that, because you said yourself, if you got a pastor, you got a barber, you got a beautician, you got a mechanic, you got a nurse, you got to get a pastor and a psychiatrist, somebody up there, somebody that you got to talk to. And sometimes some brothers, and I've had this conversation, they don't see why they need a therapist. they don't understand why. So a lot of them are figuring out that maybe they can find a brother, a friend, someone that's in the word that they can start with talking to them. And that's probably one of the first steps.
And I think in reality, because culture has set it up to where if the man just provides, if the man just takes care of the home and be provisional in that aspect, then that's good enough, that they don't have to develop into the maturity or into the space where they can live life authentically. And it says this, it says, because, and I read to you this statement, it's no longer what I can do for you or for my wife or for my spouse or for the relationship. It has to become now, not what I can do for you, but who I can be for you. Because if it is only about what I can provide, hear me, or how I look in public, or how much money I have, and that's all you want from me, if that's all you want from me is what I provide for you, then solely providing for you gives me a reason to be a jack or an a-hole. Mm-hmm. Because you're not challenging my character, you only want what I can offer. Mm-hmm. And women have let men off the hook by being satisfied with them just paying bills and not challenging who they are. And so you're letting them off the hook. And man can only find his true value in his relationship with God, his creator. And I'm going to give you this, and then I'm going to let y'all got to navigate it. Watch this, because I'm going to give you this, Marcus. Here, watch this. Man can only, hear me carefully, find his true value in his relationship with God, his creator. When a man has zero spiritual foundation, then he is led by existential realities. He's led by what he possesses. And my value, your value, is not in nothing you can lose. You can lose money. Mm-hmm. You can lose a house. Mm-hmm. You can lose a car. You can lose a relationship. And your value is not in nothing that you can lose, but it is in everything God created. And I will give you, watch this, Marcus. He says, so without, first thing God gave man, hear me. The first thing God gave man, y'all know in the Bible, in Genesis, when they said man, he made man, and then he put him over the, to have dominion in the earth and have dominion over things and all this stuff. Go back and read the text. The first thing he gave man was not a job. The first thing he gave man was not a wife. The first thing he gave man was not anything tangible. The first thing he gave us was identity. He created man in our likeness and in our image. Then he put him in charge of his assignment. No. You can't be fruitful in your assignment until you're secure in your identity in him. Yes. And so the dominion comes. He says, all right, man, I got a purpose for you. I created your purpose. I created the fields that you're going to manage. However, now I'm creating you. But all of your success is connected to your position in me. And you can always tell when a man is out of position with God, his life becomes fruitless. He did not give him a job. He did not give him money. He did not even give him a wife. He says, because you will mess up your wife, you will mess up your purpose if you are not certain of your identity in me. And men, we've lost that spiritual necessity to be. And we work so hard. And I was just telling man, we work so hard for things. And we work so hard to accumulate this stuff. And God says, just imagine if your life is rooted in your Creator and your identity is secure in who He made you to be, how much more fruitful and peaceful your life can be. Because when you're out of place and out of position with God, you are scrambling in life trying to figure things out. And God says, man, you got to be able to bring you back to me. And you were saying that earlier. Y'all better jump in here. You were saying, who? Go ahead, G. And he was saying it earlier that, man, if we don't have that foundation, if we don't have that spiritual fortitude, our life is lost. We will be looking at people with our buckets who don't have buckets, and we be judging them because they don't have buckets. But they got everything that you need in order to survive.
Well, there's that false way that people think it comes about, but what we're talking about is things that money can't buy, things that status quo can't take away, and we'll talk about that, and that is the fruits of the Spirit. Okay? There's a falseness of it because if we look at this world and the things of this world, there's a lust after the eyes. What's he got? How much money he make?
Right.
Who's he connected with? Those things are what they go looking after. Then when they end up having children with this man, this is why another reason why the divorce rate is so high. He's so angry. He's very controlling. It's his way or the highway. I can't live with that kind of man. He's abusive. So he had everything that they were searching for at first, thought it was good. It was good to their eyes. But then
they never challenged him to be
and they start looking deep, and it's like, wow, does he have love? Does he have mercy? Does he have grace? Does he have wisdom? Does he have charity? Does he have those things coming out? Is he going to be really patient with the children when they have problems?
Don't run over this. Because we were talking about this last night about understanding why a person's here and vetting people before you give them true access. Even in dating relationships, that we fall in love either with potential or we fall in love with provision. And we never challenge the person or investigate the character or to see if he's connected to his creator.
Correct. Or they see the red flags, and I'm saying even men, we see those red flags in women.
Absolutely.
But am I going to turn around and be like, oh, she's great to look at, she makes great money, and yeah, I seen her yell and scream at her children or her mom, she don't even respect her mother, but you know what? I'm going to let that red flag go. No. Again, our foundation is in God. Our foundation has always got to come back to him for him to turn around and say, this is who I am, and be ye holy. So when we start to look at those things, and that's where we have to pray so hard, and that's for the clarity like you were talking about last night, and ask God to show us, like, who is this person for me? Stop looking at the potential, okay, and start looking at what's right in front of us. What's there, okay? You was playing dominoes. You already know. It's not the potential what that other person has in hand. I have what I have in my hand right now. That's what I see right now. It's not about what's coming down. This is what's in front of me. How do I ask God for the wisdom to play?
Brandon, I think you're the youngest person around this circle, and you are an anomaly to me. You're an anomaly. Here's why. Because you have not become inundated with the culture. That you see the culture around you, you see the priorities of the culture. But you have such a stable foundation and you have such a stable view of life. How did you come to that space where, first of all, where did you find your worth and your value? And how did you come to that space of understanding that this is who I am and this is who God made me to be and this is what I am to do in the earth? Or you can let them know if you're still trying to figure it out. It's up to you.
Turn that mic
towards you.
It's always a process, and I wouldn't even go as far as saying that I've never succumbed to the culture. I definitely was about the culture, just growing up, my surroundings, my environment, going off to college, and just indulging in worldly things. And then what really happened to me was getting to a point where I've lived my entire life, nourishing the flesh, like doing what I wanted, not building my relationship with God, and just like living frivolously, right? Enjoying life. And I did everything that I thought I was supposed to do, right? Like go to school, get an education, get a good career, make money, date a beautiful woman.
Right.
And then I got to the point where I achieved that, and I still felt lost.
Unfulfilled.
And I'm like, I took every step that, this world said if I did it, I'd be successful. Yep, I'd be happy. And then I got to the point where I had my own place, lived alone, bachelor pad, nice luxury apartment. And I didn't know what more I needed to accomplish. And I didn't know why I lacked motivation, why I wasn't happy. And I realized that being on social media, comparing myself to everyone,
Absolutely.
comparing material things like tangible items, I had to ask myself, like, does that really make me happy? Like, yeah, I have it, but does that bring me joy? Like, nice cars, does that actually bring me joy? Like buying a new car.
Right.
And then realizing and having that, just being honest with myself, having that truthful conversation, and also going to therapy, right? Being questioned by a professional
Absolutely.
as well, allowed me to see that I wasn't connected with my identity. And so, I guess to bring it back to the original question, in terms of when we don't have those things that traditionally men were seen to have to bring value,
Right.
it's because our value doesn't come in those material things.
Absolutely.
Our value comes in our purpose.
Absolutely.
And so I had to realize I don't know my purpose.
Right.
And that's really what it came down to.
Absolutely.
It's like, I don't know my purpose. What steps do I take to find it? And I knew I couldn't find it, being on the streets,
Absolutely.
dating around, just living in my flesh. I knew the only way I could find it was to have a relationship with the person that gave me my assignment.
He is an anomaly.
He is a anomaly because now I've been preaching since 5. If I had that laser focus at your age, I'd be so further along now.
We all would.
Because it's like, man, you get out there and you see all of the stuff that the world fulfills. And here's what's crazy. We experience what the world fulfills, and then not comprehending or understanding that true fulfillment never wears off. Like, I go club, I have fun, I fornicate, I do whatever, and and y'all watching this, don't look at me like you ain't never fornicated. You fornicated too, so don't. But God is a deliverer, okay? Don't do that. don't do. And then you say, man, all of this stuff seemingly where you having fun and you're enjoying life, it wears off, and then you got to do it again or do it at another heightened level. When you find purpose and you are fulfilling purpose, like, man, I didn't know, I didn't start pursuing purpose even while preaching, fellas. I'm preaching in the pulpit across the world, 30-something countries internationally, and I'm leaving the stage, and I'm like, because I was operating from a mentality of giftedness and not really understanding the true value of my calling. And there's a difference, man, now. And so I started asking myself this question: what value do I add to people other than what I do for you? What value do I add to you other than what I can give you tangibly? And I said, man, Where do I feel fulfilled? Well, in rooms like this, where I'm talking to people and say, hey, God's got his hand on you. I'm talking to you, hey man, God has a reason for you in the earth. Let me tell you why. Because, hold that for me. Because he created your purpose before he made you.
Right.
Go read Genesis chapter. The text says, the Bible says that he made the fields, he made all the land, he made all the water. Now he needs somebody to run it. So the purpose was created. Now he needed a man. And he needed a man who was secure in his identity. He needed a man that was secure in his identity, that would understand his purpose, and then that would be able to love his wife. He needed a man. So the purpose, so you're not here without anything to do. God says, all right, I'm gonna create this, and then I'm gonna make Ricky, because what's in Ricky is gonna fulfill this. I'm gonna make this space, and what's in Chris is going to fulfill this. And I said, man, what value do I bring to people other than what I can, speaking into what God has gifted and given to them and wanting to see everybody win. Chris, push that mic over. Chris had an experience in life, y'all, that had him, and he just told us a little bit, and prayerfully, he doesn't mind sharing it. Chris experienced major loss. And after you experience loss, you like, all right, God, why am I still here? What am I here for? And now you're coming into a space where you're understanding that God has a purpose for you in the earth. But testify just a little bit, Chris, about the loss, the tragic loss you experienced, and then being able to navigate that space to find, number one, God again.
Turn that mic a little
and then
more
to find God again.
There you go.
And then to find value even after what was taken from you.
So back in '97, I had lost, I kissed my family goodbye. They went to visit a family member that was on their deathbed. In '97, they drove off. As men, as you were saying, my job was to provide. Not be with my family on that road trip, but to be here because rent's due next week. So as they left, I'm thinking I'm doing the manly thing. For years, I still didn't understand what I didn't do, but at that point, my family was in a single car rollover. My wife is pronounced dead on scene. My daughter died on her way to the hospital. Still not knowing, because back then, I was not raised in the church. I didn't understand the word. I believe there was a God, as everybody would pray as there's trouble. And when good things went, God is good. When good things didn't go, why me? Why this? Why that? Well, when I went down there and picked up my daughter, my wife and daughter was pronounced dead. My youngest daughter was the only survivor of the accident. I got a ride with a friend, and at that time, to be truthful, drinking and doing anything I could to numb my mind.
Absolutely.
To get there. Get there to the hospital. As I'm walking in, everybody in the hospital is looking at me like, I'm sorry. At that time, I was so numb to it, I didn't understand what sorry was. I don't care, just, I guess my daughter's here. They're like, hey, we're just letting you know your daughter's not the daughter you saw that morning. At that time, I'm like, I'm not going in there. Go in there. If she's bad, I'm out. You know what I mean? I'm going to run. A friend of mine was like, no, you need to go in there. So as I'm going in, they're briefing me like, your daughter hasn't said a word. Your daughter hasn't moved. Your daughter, is playing in a cardboard box. They're analyzing her, not understanding, because they don't know who she is. So as I drove from Denver to New Mexico to pick her up, I walk into the room and she drops everything. Dad!
Wow.
They're writing everything down.
Wow.
And I'm not understanding because the picture they painted is not what I just seen.
Right.
So my daughter comes, grabs me, Dad, we're going through everything. The severity of this accident was so bad that the pictures of the car, they did not allow me to see the physical car. The police would not let me, like when I got into town, they escorted me to where my daughter was and escorted me out. My brother went down there to collect personals and take pictures and do what he could do. And pretty much the picture of this vehicle, it was a Dodge Dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Dynasty, Destiny. There was the license plate frame was the only piece of this vehicle that could be salvaged. I mean, it was, gone. So the whole time growing from that place, I didn't have time to process why me, why this, why that. I had a daughter that was supposed to be brain dead. That is clean. I mean, she came out of this thing with a scratch on her head. And back in '97, car seats were not of what they are now.
No, they're not.
Super tied down. It was a wobbly, plastic thing, and basically from the rollover, she banged her head on the thing, had a rash, it looked like road rash.
Wow.
So when everything happened, I never sat there and like, why me? I didn't have the time to do that. I had to be what we're intentionally to do is be the man. There's no weakness. There's no crying. I don't even believe, other than when I was on the side of the road when I got the phone call, I don't think I cried until years later. Like
wow.
I teared up, but fully let it out because, at the time I'm thinking this child, and not understanding blessings and miracles. This kid's now perfectly fine. And I was the dad that went to work, not, did anything else. But long story short, as we started to grow from that, I took her to other family, my wife's side of the family. Because people who are like, I have to have this excuse now to fall. No, we don't have that excuse. See this kid.
Wow.
If this kid don't bring glory to you, there's something wrong with you. Don't use this excuse. So as we moved out, we moved to Vegas, be with family. And my whole thought process is I need to be strong for them. I need to get them back on track.
Wow.
So as they asked, how did you maneuver that? I don't think I actually maneuvered this until my 40s. This happened when I was 22.
Wow.
So when I talk to people, they're just like, no, that didn't happen. You know what I mean? So how do you say it? So as you grow, I'm 48 now. I actually got into the word in my late 40s.
Wow.
And like you're saying, I was taught you provide, you go to work, you don't really care what they gotta say, you just do what you gotta do. But it's weird because now that I'm in the word, I'm seeing now from what happened in '97, as you're saying, God knew me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that. But now, fast forward from the accident to elementary, my daughter that's supposed to have brain damage was now excelling, reading at a 6th grade level in kindergarten.
Wow.
So I didn't have time to say, oh, poor me.
Right.
Because there's no poor me. There's even no poor her.
Right.
You lost your mom and daughter. Okay, we're gonna let that ride for a minute, but you're here for a reason.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So going from there with that right there, when all that happened, there was no oh, thank you God. I didn't even know that. You know what I mean? I couldn't even comprehend that until 2018. So
That's, I don't even know how to, I don't know, go ahead.
I guess what I would say to that is I would point back to what Rick had to say, and what you also talked about, Pastor, is the healing process starts all again. Coming back to God, finding yourself in God, getting under a pastor, getting under some therapy. Not saying how things would have went with your life if you'd have found that earlier. I'm pretty sure to yourself, you're like, yo, I'd probably be further ahead.
no,
I
I don't even think I would have at that point there. I don't
if you would
even.
accepted having the
I
pastor.
wouldn't even understood that process because I would have been like, okay, cool. You're going to tell me how I'm going to feel.
Right.
At that time, I didn't see a problem.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
That's-
Up till how do you say it? Everyone has their everyone says, well, you find God when you're young. You get trained. You don't because I went to Bible school every Sunday. I didn't go because I was learning. I went because my friends were there. So as life went on,
Yeah.
okay, they would say, okay, this is how I explained it. I believe there's a God, but I don't need to go to a church because in my mind, I don't understand the religion. So going back to needing a pastor, needing tools. So as I got into the word, I started hearing, you're not this religion, you're not that. I have relation.
Yes.
So when I finally felt
Revelation.
so everything that I used, because how do you say it? You can build yourself up to be this bad guy. At some point, you fall. Okay, when you fall, okay, everything that got you through that don't work now. So old keys won't open new doors.
Right.
So as you navigate through that, by hearing, like you said, getting a pastor, I can't say, okay, well, I went to this church and it changed my life. I heard, how do you say it? I got on YouTube. YouTube for me was gangster hip hop. That's all I listened to. It was 80s, 90s.
Well, yeah, you want to NWA. Yeah, I'm going to NWA. Tupac, okay.
So tell me this, when you open your YouTube as this shift, I'm going to call it, hits, okay, no matter how tough I am, now I'm crying.
Right.
Do I understand why I'm crying? No idea.
Right.
But now when I open YouTube, tell me why all of a sudden now there's nothing but TD Jakes.
Yeah.
I don't even know who this man was. I seen him at Heritage one time, but I didn't know who, his platform or, even to look for that. So to open that now I'm hearing word, Freenick comes next as TD Jakes flows that. So then, how do you say it? Then God will show you stuff. So back then, God's knocking on my door. I'm like, bill collector, I know. I got cars, I got house, I got family, but I don't have God.
Right.
So as all this goes through, like I told my dad, as I started getting into the word, I'm like, I've been living chapters of the Bible, not knowing.
Absolutely.
So then when your eye gets opened, you start to process things different.
Yes.
So like you were saying, the old person coming out, now I'm like, man, if I could have been that person back, like I always tell you, where were you in 2015? I needed that word. But I always, I don't know the exact Isaiah. It comes on Facebook, and every time I see it, I share it. Isaiah 60:22, in God's time.
And that's what I was going to say to you. God, it's weird. We can say, I wish, and God had to really convict me, because he said to me one day, you act as though I'm not sovereign. He says, you act as though I don't know everything, all things pertaining to you, this world, in your life.